Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Coffee with Convery. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Manny Almonte, a passionate advocate and visionary in empowering men of color. Manny is the founder of Mastermind Connect, a men's collective, and the Young Masterminds Initiative, a nonprofit that creates transformative experiences empowering men of color to deeply connect with their passions, inner selves, and communities. Manny's work extends to the outdoors, where he leads initiatives like Camping to Connect, a groundbreaking BIPOC-led youth mentorship program that champions justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. His award-winning short film, Wood Hood, powerfully advocates for accessibility and inclusion in nature and has made waves at national conferences and new channels. With a background in business and community building, Manny is also the principal of MA Reloaded, a boutique web design firm. Originally from the Dominican Republic and now based in Denver, Colorado, Manny leads a purposeful life with his family and dogs dedicated to creating positive change. Manny, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you all for tuning in and to the
Absolutely.
conversation. Yes.
Absolutely. We're really excited to get started. So, I always like to ask the guests a couple rapid fire questions to warm up. I don't know if you need much warming up. You got a great story to tell, but what do you consider your superpower?
My superpower, I believe I'm a weaver, a connector. I'm passionate about community, so being able to create spaces where people can connect and thrive, to be able to make put the dots together where I can find the talent of value between people in my community or my network, so that they can benefit from it, and not just be a one-sided thing. I think I've been told that is something that I'm good at, and it's something that makes me happy because
Love that.
I become a resource for people, and it makes me a person of value to my community.
I love that. A weaver, a connector. I love that. What is your favorite smell?
My favorite smell, I've never been asked that question before, but I will tell you, a very a ripe, a ripe mango. I'm from the
Ah,
Dominican Republic, from an island. It's funny because living here in the US, in New York City, now in Denver, Colorado, you go to a supermarket and the smell is not the same. It's not, the pesticides and all these different things. And a
yeah.
couple of weeks ago, I went to visit family in the island, and my dad has a cabin up in the mountains there, and waking up in the morning to go with him to pick up some fruit and just from the tree and
Wow.
smell it and rip it and eat it right there at 9 o'clock in the morning. It was amazing
That's a
because it
that,
brings me back to childhood. So it's the island vibe, the health, all the times that I went out there with my cousins and friends and started to just, get some mangoes when I was like, what, 7, 8 years old, right? So
wow.
it takes me back to to adventure, and
I
my
love
island.
that. That's why I asked that question because people always think of senses like, what we see and other things, but smells bring you right back, right, to
Yeah.
different things. It's super cool. Thank you. That's awesome to hear your response to that. And mangoes, I bet you they are unbelievable compared to what we get up here, even in Canada. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
The best compliment that I have received. Oh, these are great questions. Wow. Um, I got to think about that one. I don't know. I think my daughter, I have a 24-year-old daughter.
Okay.
At some point when she was a teenager, which is the time when kids, the last thing they're thinking about is giving you a compliment. They find all faults, and then you're not cool enough. At some point, I remember her saying that was pretty cool.
There you go. There you go. I like that.
I don't know what happened. Maybe I think I bought her something nice. I don't know, some nice meal that I
No,
don't
wait,
know. She,
that's
she
a cool
actually
one.
we were like hanging out, and she paused for a second and told me that was pretty cool. And I'm like, okay,
Hey, that's a
I'll take
nice
that.
one. Yeah, exactly. That's a good one to get. Go to snack. What do you go to? What do you like to eat? Maybe it's the mangoes, but maybe
I was gonna say besides mangoes.
yeah.
What do I like? I like sushi. Spicy tuna is my go-to. I do like spicy food.
Mm,
Um, it's either that or uh, jerk chicken.
yeah,
Jamaican jerk chicken, like really Jamaican, really not
yeah,
not the supermarket stuff. Again, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, so you have access to all of that, the
yeah.
real deal.
That's
Yeah,
right. You get some real good jerk chicken in New York. I know.
yeah.
I've had my fill. It's good. Um, Thinking about school, a lot of our listeners are either in school or getting out of school or thinking about their next steps. But what was your favorite subject in school?
Um, I thought for a while that philosophy was my thing, especially in high school. Um, and then going into college as well as a freshman. But I realized that what I was really good at that continued my adulthood is history
Huh.
and it's world history, right? And um, became a history major, but I just realized that I never thought about it in school as being the subject
Hmm.
that I liked because I was in whenever that happened, I thought it was because I liked the teacher. And the teacher was great. She was
Right.
an amazing teacher, so cool. But I almost became like a teacher's pet, but it was actually the history that I was attracted to, and that made me really interested in whatever she was saying, and to be able to have discussions and conversations and ask questions. So yeah, so history became the
Hmm.
thing that it helps me frame the present and the future. One book that I don't know that question is going to come about books, but I will tell you that
Yeah.
this book from Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Colombian writer who won a Pulitzer Prize for it back in, I believe, 1979 or 1980, called 100 Years of Solitude.
Mm.
It was an amazing read. They're making it into a 4 to 6 part series on Netflix, I think releasing next month, I think.
Okay.
Um, and it really speaks to the cycle of life and how there's nothing new under the sun. And if you know what happened yesterday and the day before, you are bound to have a better idea and understanding of what's to come because everything is cyclical.
Hmm.
So it's basically this long family, the story of a family, and who was the child at the beginning of the story became at the end this very old, great grandmother, and she wasn't faced by anything, right? All of the family were struggling with family dynamics, with life, everything happening, and they thought she was always quiet and everything. So they thought that not that she was losing it, but they
Hmm.
wouldn't consult, but she's listening to, and watching everything. So you're basically getting in that book like her thoughts, right?
Yeah.
and and you having read the part where she was growing up first, you understand how the thinking of a person of that age is not because they're judging. In fact, this little judgment is more empathy
Yeah.
and more like understanding of like, yeah,
Understanding.
yeah, this happened to like, yeah, this is nothing new. It's not to them. It's not new to me. So I'm not gonna react to this. I already know how it's gonna play out. So there's no reason to fret about it, right?
Right.
So love that. And love the book because of it.
Yeah, no, interesting. And have to check that out if it's coming out on Netflix as well. And good shout out for the book. Thank you for sharing that thought.
No problem.
We all start somewhere. What was your first job?
My first job was I was what, 14 years old
Okay.
in the Dominican Republic. I moved here when I was 20. I finished high school when I turned 17. And I remember that at some point when I was 14, there was this fair or something where it was like a festival, something was just for the weekend. And I asked my dad for money to go to the fair. It was Saturday. And my friends from high school were going. And it was always, yeah, give me money to do that. For some reason, that day, we were in the kitchen, and my dad is handing me over like 100 pesos, not even dollars. It was just back then, I guess it was, let's say $50.
Yeah.
And my mom jumped from like the other side of the kitchen, like in slow motion. And my dad and I are like, what? And basically her thing was, that I was at an age where, I should earn, the money so that I can appreciate it because I was just used to stuff being given.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so I want a job. And my dad helped me get a job with a friend who owned a book a printing store in front across from a university in the capital. And so I learned how to first I started making copies and then binding the books and uh, very a trade basically
Yeah.
that it gave me an understanding on again the whole process and trusting a process, what goes first, the patience that goes with it, binding and gluing them, pressing them, leaving them there for a few days so that the whole thing can actually bind. Um, so I never thought about it until you asked me that question, by the way. But now again in adulthood, when you have an appreciation for the process, right,
Yes.
and the importance of doing things, paying attention to detail, and how one little thing, one thread that you leave out could unbind the book, right?
Yeah.
So I think that helped me pay attention to detail, and I never thought about it until now that I'm talking, yeah, about
That's
that.
cool.
It's a great
Yeah.
question.
No,
Yeah.
thanks for sharing it. It's because I talk to people all the time and they're always like, how'd you get to where you are? And I was like, I think it's cooler to find out how'd you start, right? Because we all start somewhere with something. I mean, I washed pots and pans my first job, so, right? Learned
Yeah.
about how to keep a kitchen clean and how to work with people. So,
The,
um,
the, the second job, and I will tell you this because of
yeah,
what you just said right now, and that working with how to work with people. I was working first with books. It was just me and basically having I was an apprentice, right? Somebody
right.
was me there. But funnily enough, my second job was at this public company in the Dominican Republic that was in charge of all of the cement that for building houses and build
Okay.
everything, right? And it was a national company with employees, all over, and they were so used to the bureaucratic stuff and paperwork that when they implemented, computer systems with like database, and I'm talking about back in the early 90s, like to have everything digitized, then they had a whole IT department. And at 16 years old, I remember I wasn't even at high school yet. My dad at the time also helped me get that job. And by the time I wasn't even 18 years old. I was head of that department, right?
Wow.
Overseeing people who were older than me, right? Because I took to it,
Yep.
faster.
Yep.
And that actually, I did learn different lessons there about managing people, but even worse, and more harder, more difficult to be so young and
Hmm.
having managed people who were older than me. Everybody was older than me, and people who not only older in age, but working there. You had like people who were seniors, like
Yeah.
working there for 10, 15, 20 years. And there comes this kid, and I had to learn how to manage myself, first of all, my ego and all of that at that young age, because there's no way that I could have survived the day there if I tried to come as a smart A, right? Like thinking
Yep.
that the youngest I
Knew
know
it
more because
all.
the
Yeah.
others that don't know computers. Yes. So that also taught me how to work with people, which then led me to a career like business administration and being able to, to study that and execute it and become an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Awesome. What a really interesting story. And let me ask you one last question, then we're going to jump into your story because I find it so interesting and inspiring. Is if you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would you pick?
Ah, one word to describe myself. I'll say, hmm, I want to say driven,
Hmm.
but th that is a question how I see myself. But the thing is that that's a little skewed in a way. There's a lot of things that play a part there on how we see ourselves and the persona that we
Yep.
wear, right? Like the
Yep.
mask that we wear today. Um, and what I'm thinking about right now really is how do the people that I love, that I care about, and they
Yep.
care for me, how do they see me? Like, what is one word that we use to describe me? What's one word that my wife would use? You know, my daughter, my brothers, my sisters, my dogs, if they could speak. You know, so yeah, I mean, I think loyal,
Yeah,
being someone who
it's a good
cares.
word. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's a
I would
great
say,
word to describe you. That's awesome. And
yeah.
I'm glad you took that time to reflect on it because I think that, you know, you've you jumped to word first driven thinking that's what you are and what you do, and then you really thought about those loved ones and say loyal. And I love that. It's awesome. It speaks volumes of who you are. But I want to jump into it because I had the privilege of meeting you, but you didn't know I met you on the TV screen when you were talking on a Sunday morning show about what you were doing. So I got a little bit of highlights and really inspired me to reach out. But for our audience, can you give us some insights, just some roots and beginnings to Manny, like who you are, where it all started for you? Yeah, just curious.
Um, well, it all started, with my mom and my dad meeting at university, and then coming together.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I hear an accent which I've never tried to lose. I'm very proud of it. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. I moved to New York City when I was 20 years old to continue my studies. Decided to stay. My dad is a citizen. I have family there. I came here basically with the option of staying or going back to the Dominican Republic. I had a degree there. I just wanted to have one from the States.
Hmm.
In a place like Dominican Republic and many other countries, there's a lot of value in having a degree from abroad, either from a
Hmm.
European country or from the United States. And that is a colonized mindset, right? To think
Yep.
that is better just because it comes from uh, outside in one of the large countries, not appreciating that we had the first university of the Americas in the Dominican Republic, in the city where I grew up, in Santo Domingo, and that we have international students really coming there to learn,
Absolutely.
dentistry and other things where they excel at, right? But again, you never appreciate home. You look outwards
Great
and think
lesson
that,
right there.
yeah. So, but I did move there, and being in New York City, I had the blessing of having family there already, and I had visited when I was younger. But being able to navigate the city and the different cultures and such a melting pot, right? Found myself at that age with a big sense of independence, right? And sort of looking at the city and everything that came with it as a challenge that
Hmm.
I wasn't going to have living in an island, right? Like everything is small, is limited. Uh, and again, even to that, I would say that now I have a different perspective on that. I wish not that I stay there. There's no regrets, but now I'm looking to go back and get a place there. Um, but coming here allowed me to discover myself, what I'm made of,
Right.
without the direct support from my parents, which I think goes back to that moment that I shared earlier about my mom
Yep.
stopped my dad from giving me like so much money, quote unquote, um, and having to start like, wait, okay, so what is it that I can do on my own? Um, so that led to a good 27 years living in New York City, and I built community there, friends. I started um, working with a cousin of mine who was an entrepreneur. He had, a couple of businesses, from a boutique store, a sneaker shop, to a communication store. And back then in the mid 90s, I'm talking about 1995, there were like the beepers and all that,
Oh
right? So
yeah.
he
Yeah.
to sell and repair, the beepers, right? So he had technician there. So I was supporting in that business. I had an understanding of electronics. I did go to trade school in when I was in high school in the Dominican Republic. So it's funny. The recurring theme for me is to be open to doors that crack open
Mm-hmm.
and pushing
Push.
to the door and walking through, right? So many times we see many doors we have to knock on. It's hard. Sometimes they crack open, but you have to be curious. You have to see, what's on the other side, and you have to take a leap of faith, like believe in yourself that there's a reason why that door opened and when no others were. So now it's on you to walk through. So at that time, I remember going to Radio Shack in Manhattan, 109th Street on Broadway by Columbia University, and I went to pick up a printer cable, female to female connection, and that was before USB. It was
Yeah,
like
I
2010.
remember.
Yeah. So I go to Radio Shack and trusting that they know what they're doing. I said, this is what I have, this is what I need. So I buy the cable. They didn't even double check on it. Went all the way back to the shop. It wasn't the right cable. It was like male to female, something like that. And so I go back to return it. And when I went to return it, I'm talking about like mid-November 1996. Uh, the store manager there is the one that's behind the counter. He actually happened to come out to it, and it was a very very busy at the time. And I don't know if you remember, Radio Shack at the time was before Circuit City, Best Buy, before all the big box stores.
That's right.
Radio Shack was it, for you to
That's
buy
right.
anything that has to do with electronics. Um, and I went I went there to return the cable, and he was asking me what was wrong. And the way that I sort of quickly described, what was wrong without blaming anyone was just simply like, listen, this is what I needed, specific, this is what I got. Uh, what do I need to do right now to get this going? Because I need to go. For some reason, in that quick exchange, he saw something in me. He says like, so hey, so what do you do? Like I'm looking for someone like you. Maybe you're interested in working here. I'm like, man, I'm not interested in working retail. I'm fine. I'm working, with my cousin, and he's like, uh, but listen, there's opportunity here because it's not just what do you call it? Hourly rate, right? There's
Yeah.
there's commissions and there's this and that in the turn. There's a sort of open mobility here. I
Yeah.
started as a salesperson. I'm a manager, and I'm like, so he was like so eager that I was curious. I said like, okay, I'm not really interested in applying for a job. I'm not looking for a job here, but I'm curious as to why you are really pitching this to me this way, right? And I was 20
Yeah.
years old, like
Yeah.
21, 21. He's telling me he actually studied architecture and he ended up being store manager there. And my young self is judging him as a store manager, like, a school teacher back then was
Uh,
making like $35,000. Even a police officer was making that, plus overtime and stuff like that. But like base, right?
yeah.
This is your city, and I'm like, I'm not interested. And but then he tells me, let me just show you, how much like my guys make, standard. So I'm looking at it and they're making like $50,000, $40,000, and 1995,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's very interesting. By the way, he had one of the top stores in the country, by Columbia University in Manhattan. So it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily general for like all the stores like that. And then we go to his office and he's showing me in the computer his payroll, right? And I said, well, who's that? Oh, that's my assistant manager. And who's this? That's my key holder. So basically second assistant. I'm like, oh, okay, sounds okay. So let me see here. Okay. Hmm. Where's yours? And he's like, what do you mean? Um, what you showing me everybody else is here, but you are also on payroll. Like, where's your payroll? How much are you making? He said, I've never been asked that question before. Like, why not hiring a manager? And I'm like, yeah, but you hiring a potential manager. I'm not here looking to do your job, but there's other stores. And if I join you, it's not to be just a salesperson. I'm gonna be your top guy here. And the reward for that is not for me to just be an employee forever, right? Like, and he was like, what do you mean, my top employee? I'm like, listen, I'm not gonna go anywhere where I'm not gonna be do my best, and my best is gonna reflect where I'm gonna be the best here. So he was like, "Oh, so you sure about that?" I'm sure about myself, ethically, like what I can do.
Yeah.
But again, right now, that's not the question. Where's yours? So he shows it to me, and it's like six figures.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, all right, where's the application? He said, "Oh, so now you want the job?" I'm like, well, now, yes, I'm going to strive for that if that's okay with you. And there's other stores. I don't have to take yours. Again, I'm not after your job, but I want to be able to be your peer at some point. He was just shaking his head as he handed me the application. Well, within 3 months, I became that key holder. Within 6 months, I became assistant manager. And within a year, I was the manager of the store at 103rd Street and Broadway. A
That
year
is
later, at 22 years old, which was like a $2
that is
million
an
store. They'd
incredible
never given it to a
story.
young person before, a rookie manager or anything like that. But
What an
that's how we have.
incredible story. Like that
Yeah.
is when that door was open a little bit and amazing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
and then I made what they call Leaders Club
yeah.
within the first 2 years, so top in the nation as far as profit and loss management, and I enticed them to opened their stores in Harlem, New York. At that time, there were no stores from 110th Street to 181st Street, right? So I asked them to open one. I saw what was happening in 125th Street in Harlem, and they opened 125th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. I had to scout the location. They actually made me work for my suggestion,
Yep.
and I ended up managing that store. And then because of the success of that store, they opened another one on 125th and Lexington Avenue, all the way on the east side. Another one at 145th Street, 169th Street. They opened another one at 207th Street. Um, and I became, or rather, my store, my team, became the number one, or rather, no, number one store in the continental US, number two store globally, because the number one store was Mall of the Americas in Puerto Rico, which was the only store in Puerto Rico, and they didn't have any other retail store. That was the only reason why he had an edge on me. So the team that I had, everybody that worked with me as assistant manager and everything would have their, like, it was that churn to
Yep.
make them managers, to get them to be successful as well, which
Right.
led me to me becoming a district manager, the youngest district manager for Radio Shack and at the time, and then for Manhattan, which was the number one district.
Yeah.
As And so I lasted 10 years working in corporate there.
Wow,
And
that's incredible.
while I was doing that, I was also, New York City nightlife. I was young, so I was promoting, events and parties downtown.
Yep.
Uh, at some point, that led me then to open a club uptown Manhattan in 2005. So around that time is when I left Radio Shack. So my 10th year anniversary, I saw the writing on the wall with them. They had switched leadership. The CEO had left, and they brought the former CEO of Blockbuster Video, who had just gone bankrupt. He brought his whole
Ah,
team with him. He started making some changes of leadership. I was supposed to become a regional manager at that point, and I kept telling them, it's my 10th year anniversary coming, and if I don't have the
yeah.
position that I've been promised, uh, then I'm leaving. And because they were a new team and they were a bit arrogant, and
Mm,
they thought I was bluffing. And exactly on my anniversary, I left. And they were surprised because it was the number one district in the country. But you know what? The short-sightedness that they had
yeah.
was that that new leadership didn't have an interest in learning who they were working with, who was their team, their the people who were managing the talent, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't know that I had my own business, and they didn't know that I loved working with them, and because of the ability to work with, to build others, and give them opportunities. But if I found a ceiling with them, I didn't have to wait until they continue to show me their lack of uh leadership.
Hmm.
Uh so I left, and then within 2 years they went bankrupt.
Wow. Isn't that incredible? What an amazing story. There's so much to unpack in your journey there that it's like, it's incredible. No, because I think one of the things for the listeners is a lot of people that are listening to this podcast are asking these same very questions that you were faced with. Um, they're sometimes shy away from something that looks too, mm, like in this case where it's like, no, I don't want to work retail, or I don't want to. You don't underestimate some of these things, right? Don't
Mhm.
underestimate some of these opportunities because that path you took you very different in a place where you were able to grow and show and develop. And I think that's a good lesson for a lot of listeners is, don't always be biased towards one job or one company or one thing because you can get experience in so many different ways. And your lived experiences there were
Yeah.
incredible.
I
Really
had no
great.
idea that the guys, the employees that were making that much money because you're
Right.
comparing them to like other retail
What
stores,
you
minimum
think.
wage, whatever it
Yeah,
was. I had no idea of the dynamic of bonuses and commissions and everything, where basically your talent, you have you at the store, but you have your clients, right? It's like you develop relationships,
absolutely.
and it's like you develop your own brand, right?
That's right.
And from there, it's interesting because when they uh, gave me the store a year later, right, to manage. One of the things that I negotiated with them at the time, because I didn't feel that I had the set of skills needed for that, although they trained me in-house,
Uh,
to manage a business as I was so young, was for them to actually pay my tuition because I was going to school, right? So they saw the talent, they knew they wanted me. I knew I wanted the what it came with, but it's funny because as a manager, I was doing so well in sales that I was almost making as much money as what the manager would make at that store, right?
right, right.
And without the responsibilities. But I wanted the responsibility because again, I wasn't thinking of being just stagnant. I'm always thinking of mobility.
It's good. That's a good
I
lesson
I
too.
I I use I use the fact that they recognize the talent they wanted me
Hmm.
to leverage the opportunity and say, okay, I'm doing good here, because I don't have to tell them exactly how I'm thinking, right? Uh, it's sales, you're selling, you always be selling, you always be closing, right?
Yeah,
So yes, it sounds like a great opportunity, but I'm going to school, and then this is going to really put a lot of pressure. Um, and I'm making kind of the same amount of money, but I said I studied, I read, and I asked a question: is it a if you were to pay for my tuition, isn't that a tax deductible expense for you, right? Because this is not salary, it's not an income for me, but it is education and training for you because it's business administration. I'm going to be running your business.
right.
And the regional manager was like, okay, you know what? Yeah, because I
Good
wasn't asking
negotiation
for money.
skills too, buddy. That's like another thing,
Well,
right? Negotiation skills.
yeah, you
So
have to have
let's,
the information before you come to the table. Like I already
yeah,
knew what
yeah,
the answer to the question was, basically.
yeah,
Is the issue was the person that I'm talking to understand that's going to align with it based on whatever it is that they're thinking. Because sometimes you're clashing egos, right? Or like, oh, I'm not going to give more than X. But you're asking,
right.
and you're basically giving them the answer, like you're letting it up, like, because isn't it a tax deductible? So things that he
Yeah,
may not be thinking about, I'm already putting it in his mind
there you
as
go.
basically he has the answer.
Yep,
I already have the answer. I'm asking the question, but I'm giving him the answer. I'm
that's
feeding
right.
it to him.
That's another
So
great
yeah.
lesson. Can we, I want to jump into this Mastermind Connect. I mean, empowering men of color, creating the sense of community. What inspired you to launch Mastermind Connect and and also the Young Masterminds Initiative? Can you talk about that and what it is?
Yeah, so Mastermind Connect is a men's collective
Okay.
that helps men, come together to help each other bring their passions, to life, to help each other find balance in life, to build brotherhood,
Yeah.
many of the things that we need as part of our hierarchy of needs, right? Pablo's hierarchy of needs, where you do need community. You need to be able to mirror, to have somebody to see what you're doing and validate what you're doing, and to hold you accountable and empathize, right? So I was swimming in many different circles, social circles, business circles. Um, and as a young man, young entrepreneur, like the downfall to having early success that way is that your ego is going rampant, right?
Hmm.
And I was buying the suits and then I clothes, nice cars and all that. And the circles in which I was moving in, they were putting a lot of value in material success, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And it wasn't that, it would come together to talk about the game and talk about, the new girlfriend, the new car, the new position, the new all of these different things, new house. So there was this theme of always, which is natural to men, to always connect through achievement, to
Right.
the good things that we have. So, but when you ask, like, so how you doing? No, I'm okay. And life might be like happening and you crumbling inside, right? A lot of things could be happening, but when you get together with the guys, it's almost like a little competition happening
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I was feeling that in different circles. There wasn't one that I was in where I felt that wasn't that dynamic, whether it was through material stuff or through success and achievement or socially, who you're dating or anything. So, um, in a very selfish way, I felt that I needed this space. And I was talking to a couple of other friends, about, how the banality of things and how we
Yeah.
like need to keep it real, to have a better space. And they agreed, and they were all basically thinking the same. They had the same needs. So why don't we create a mastermind group? So a mastermind group, for those who may not be aware of, mastermind is a concept that Napoleon Hill came up with. Napoleon Hill is the writer of Think and Grow Rich, and basically, a mastermind is when two or more minds come together with a common goal or idea or cause, and they work in synchronicity, right? They
Hmm.
work towards that same thing. Then they form a mastermind, right? So different minds, one focus, mastermind. So a mastermind group is one in which you can create for different things. It could be business related, and you can have meetings where you have hot seats, right? Like
Hmm.
every month or every week, whatever the group meets, and you get on the hot seat, and then you talk about whatever it is that you are doing, you're struggling with, business wise usually, and then the rest provides perspectives and resources and maybe even partner with you on something and
Hmm.
to help you achieve that, right? So that's the traditional mindset of a mastermind group. We call them Mastermind Connect because what we were seeking was connection,
Hmm.
genuine connection, right? Genuine community, brotherhood. It wasn't necessarily about business, even if business was part of it, right? Even if
Yeah.
we were supporting each other in business, it wasn't just about business. If I was struggling, with my kids, with my daughter, and I have other members who are parents, right, and or school teachers, they which who I admired, right? And they would be able to provide me with their perspective, never advice, because advice is cute, but perspective. And being able to speak to how they can relate to the issue at hand or simply how they see it. It would then inform me on other ways of dealing with the issue at hand, right? And if there were any resources from a book to a connection to a school or a resource for a job for her, like all these things will come from building this space of community and brotherhood. And so we have three different, pillars: resources, reciprocity, and respect. And what we were doing, what we're seeking to do was to build. So within the building track, you will have learning about real estate investment, learning about financial literacy, cryptocurrencies, about let's say how to dress, and build your own like style and that sort of
Hmm.
thing. And that's just a little examples of it. And we'll have like workshops, and we'll invite speakers and from our network to talk about these things. Enhance had to do with mind, body, and soul, right? So wellness, there was a wellness piece to it. We started to work out together. We started to started a book club, learn about meditation and breathing. So we're practicing that every Saturday morning. We would connect virtually uh, to have sessions of, to breathe and start the weekend, in a Zen way. Then so conversations about spirituality and not religion, right? But
Hmm.
simply there's a higher self and the way we see ourselves, and we will have this. So we called it a Sunday service. Every other Sunday we'll get together in the morning early and have these conversations. Then it was build and enhance. So mind, body, soul. So we will have conversations about relationships, about uh, fatherhood, and not just
Hmm.
talking about our kids, but also us as sons. So it's a men's collective, so sons, and our relationship with our fathers or mothers, or like
Hmm.
sharing about our journeys, because that informs a lot of why we do the things we do the way we do them. And then the last track was giving back, right? We wanted to give back to the community. That was very important. And the first couple of years, we were creating workshops on financial literacy or how to start a business, for community at large. We would go and partner with Boys Club of New York to
Hmm.
for Thanksgiving, right? And to serve food, soup kitchens, and all that kind of things. But then we started to learn how a lot of the things that we were experiencing, that we're learning, relearning, unlearning as adult men, were things that we could have benefited from greatly in our younger age as
Hmm.
teenagers. Then we could have made more informed decisions. We could have had experiences like hiking or camping that as men of color, as people of color, in fact, in America, you see it as something that don't belong in, right? Like
Hmm.
that's something that white people do, let's say, which is not true, but it's the perception of it, so it becomes a reality. And these were the things that the men were experiencing, because if I was passionate about something, or I wanted to try something and you never did, and you wouldn't have done it by yourself, but there was another member who had, then he would lead for us to have that experience. So now I get to try it, and now you, who maybe have a fear of it, get to experience it in community, right, with the
Yeah.
support of your brothers. Um, so that then led to a focus, or rather refocus, of the giving back piece. And we started what we call the Young Masterminds Initiative. So Mastermind Connect members wanted to work with youth to develop, to help mentor, and then to create a pipeline of these young men that by the time they became young adults, they would be the next generation of Mastermind Connect members,
Gotcha.
right? Um, so that's how the Young Mastermind initiative started in 2017. And officially, it was formed as a nonprofit organization back in 2018, because then it was costing us a lot of money to do that. And I ended up becoming the CEO, executive director of the organization, because we have one simple rule. I mean, no, we have more than one rule. Again, not no
Yeah.
no perspectives, not advice was one, but like you bring something to the table, you propose an idea, you have to lead it, right? So you have to see it through. You don't have to do it by yourself. You don't have to,
Yeah.
you may not have any of the tools, but that was your idea. You lead the project. You lead the thing. Everybody else supports it. Um, so I, at some point, was talking about how much money was costing to do these camping trips, the transportation, and all the things that I suggested, why don't we just incorporate a nonprofit organization so that we can actually raise funds
Right.
properly, um, for all the things that we want to do, because we're doing more and more and more of it. And everybody was on board. Said, yes, absolutely, fantastic. We're sitting at this big oval, table, and everybody's looking at me, and I'm like, okay, great. And as everybody's looking at me, it sank in that moment that, ah, I'm gonna have to lead this. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to run a nonprofit organization, which is harder than running a regular business.
Yeah.
Uh, so here I am, 6 years
Here you
later.
are. That is really cool. And also, I want to ask you because Woodhood, right, is the award-winning short film you produced with Andy. How did that tie into this? Is it part of, I mean, obviously it, from what I've seen, but for the audience, like it's inspires you to talk about inclusivity and also in the outdoors, right?
Yeah, so I'm
Am
going
I
to go back to
thinking?
the doors, right? And
Yep,
again,
go
even
back.
what I
Yeah,
just shared with you about the nonprofit,
right.
what I've been doing for the last 6 years mainly, and where I found purpose in this work, by the way, the moment that we started working with the younger versions of ourselves.
It's cool.
Um, yeah, so that was the door that opened, and we worked through, and here we are. Um, in 2020, we had back in March 2020, I remember us doing a career panel at Hunter College for kids from all over the New York
Yep,
City, all five boroughs. And I remember we had curated every month career panels on different fields. And I was so proud of that. The fact that on that March 7th career panel that we curated, we had a judge, a prosecutor, a, a defense attorney, and a corporate attorney, a partner at a corporate firm. These were all people of color, by the way.
yep,
Uh, and the it was such an amazing experience to have this career panel with them. And then afterwards, and the kids had lunch, and then we had a workshop on Know Your Rights, where we had the prosecutor and the defense attorney, speak and answer questions about what was happening. Because again, it's 2020, right? Police brutality, all these different things happening in
right.
America, and they were sharing their own journey and why they became an attorney and a lawyer and I mean a lawyer, a prosecutor and a defense attorney, and how the prosecutor was a defense attorney, and how the prosecutor is looking to become a judge. And so they're not enemies, right? There's no good or bad there. They're just
Right,
they're
right,
doing, from different sides um, of the law, but they are working together, to make sure that there's justice served, right?
right,
So there's no enemies here. The law is the law, and then how it's applied and everything. So they're talking about that. But then there's law enforcement and their own how you get end up in front of a court many times,
right.
or that judge. And so they were sharing their insights, and they were sharing their um sort of tips, on how
Yeah,
to manage some things without losing your dignity,
yeah,
or your power as a human being, right? That was March 7th. So we were focusing at that point on doing career panels every month. We
yep.
called them Breakfast of Champions. We were doing another program called Mastering Your Craft, which had to do with life skills, from financial literacy to creative writing to all these different things. And that was every other Saturday. And then we had Mastermind Master Body, which is wellness, both practicing, exercising, uh, and learning about nutrition, all these things, but also about mental health, and
Yep.
learning about stressors and all these things that we know the chemicals in our body, and how we respond instead of reacting, to stressors. And so that was Mastermind Master Body. So those were our key programs. Camping to Connect became a thing in 2018 for the Young Masterminds Initiative, because the men of Mastermind Connect had gone camping for the first time in 2016. So Mastermind Connect members
Uh-huh.
went camping to connect, right? So because we saw the power of that experience, we wanted to then create a program for the young men. March 7th, 2020, we're doing the career panel on a Saturday. By Wednesday the 12th, the city shut down because of
Yep,
COVID.
yep, yep.
So we could no longer run this program, or these programs, because we couldn't meet in person,
Right,
right? We were ground zero for it. So however it was felt around the country, I don't know about the world, but I know New York City being so populous, it was, and it's still like before it spread out, we were getting it first. There was a lot of fear, a lot of things happening there. So we couldn't meet in person. And we started to meet via Zoom to do some of these workshops. And again, we were
right,
all struggling with mental health and our fears. But then everybody got Zoom fatigue, because the kids were going to school on Zoom. We were going to work on Zoom. And then to have to go back to our computers, to a screen like this, after all of that, and then really Connect, it was almost counterintuitive.
Right.
And by June 10th, July 10th, they allowed people to meet in person, social distancing outdoors.
Right.
And we took off running to the woods. We were out there almost every weekend, camping or hiking. And whenever we did that, when we were camping, we were able to then speak about, the mastermind master body curriculum, right? How to breathe, how to meditate, the importance at that time of doing that.
Yeah.
And so they take that home with them. Thank God, not one case of COVID came from that. We were very strategic on how we were moving about that. By 2021, we still were dealing with COVID, but at that time, we were trying to get funding and went to Patagonia. We had a meeting with Patagonia about a grant they had, and it was like February of 2021. They they told us we had a 1 minute reel, a video of the work we were doing, and they loved it.
Ah,
And but they said, you came a little bit too late for this grant, for this round of grant. We would love to support. Um, but you're gonna have to wait out 6 months for the next round. However, with that said, there is a media grant that expires in 2 weeks from now that you still have time to do. And if you feel that you could do something with that, it's not for programming, it's not for food transport, it's a media grant. So very specific to production of something that helps with storytelling. And it was $20,000. And we said, okay, so we'll apply for it. And, we're granted the funds. And the idea was to make it that instead of 1 minute reel, to make a 3 to 4 minutes video for YouTube or something that could help us recruit participants, recruit
yeah.
volunteers, maybe fundraise. Just sharing the work we were doing. And we then spoke to a friend, again, part of the Men's Collective and resources. We had this director named Alice Cullen who was also partner at Resonant Pictures. It's a production company they had done some movies, um, commercials for Delta Airlines and things
Yeah.
like that. And we approached them saying, hey, we have, this funding. We would like to do something that shows the work we're doing. And, can we do something with this? So let's see, so he came out with us at the beginning of June 2021 for a camping experience, our first one of the year. And he saw the dynamics, he saw
Yeah.
the program in action, and then he said, okay, I think we can do something with this that's more than the 3 minutes. I think there's something here, story to be told. And so then Andy Axis on myself, and Andy became the producer along with myself, and with Alice Cullen, the director, we developed this story, and came back, or the beginning of it at least, 2 weeks later, on another trip, we he came with his director of photography and good cameras, good lenses, good mics, no that disruption of the program. We wanted to maintain the integrity of the program,
Yep. Yep.
not asking people to repeat themselves, not asking them to look this way or that way. You capture what you capture, and then we'll refine through editing the storytelling based on what we were able to capture, because we didn't want to affect the experience of the young man. So we produced Woodhood, where
Woodhood.
we took that, the $20,000. We took the check and wrote another check to Alex, and he gave us, on the contract, it was another $50,000 of work that was done pro bono through by Resonant Pictures, right? So the 20,000 wasn't going to be enough because of all of what it took to
Yeah.
make, at that point, not just a 3 minutes YouTube video, but it became an actual short film, 50, 60 minutes long. After lots of cuts, it was actually 26. And the reason why it ended up being cut like that is because we wanted to premiere at the Manhattan Film Festival in Telluride, Colorado. And that was the time frame that they needed to qualify for a short film,
Right. Right.
and to be in the slot. So we made a 26-minute film first. Then we had to edit it down to 16 with the credits included,
Yeah.
and submitted it, right? And then it took off, from there, winning awards at film festivals. I won Best Short at Banff,
Wow.
which is,
Congratulations.
film festival, when it comes to the environment and outdoors and outdoor sports. They took it on the global tour for the next 3 years. They took on the national tour here in the US as well. It won awards in the UK. It won awards in Canada. Well, Banff is actually in Banff,
Yeah, Banff.
Canada.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and now it's being used in conferences and colleges and even schools, to open the conversation about A, diversity in the outdoors, but B, the importance of nature as a place for healing,
Yep.
uh, and then C, the importance of relatable mentorship, because the whole Young Masterminds Initiative and what's portrayed in the film is actually the value of being able to have men of color working with young men of color. And to be clear, something that I didn't say earlier is that the intention when I started the men's collective wasn't to create a men's collective for men of color only. It was simply for men. Like, my network is now made up of only men of color. Uh, it was the what happened was that we, the men that I'm talking about, and talking about two of them at the time, they also were men of color.
Yeah.
And then our immediate network, the people who were uh, more bound to believe and wanting to do this thing, the majority of them were men of color.
Yep.
So when we started coming together and having lots of conversations, we were able to relate culturally, right? Whether
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
Latino, Dominican, living in New York, I'm a Black man, to an African American man, to somebody from Nigeria. Like, there were a lot of things within the diaspora where we could relate and understand each other, right? And the ones who were not part of that diaspora were having a more of a hard time relating, but also there was a bit of judgment, right, on some
Hmm.
things, because we had to explain every time of why our grandma was hitting us with the chancla, right? So it's not justifying domestic violence or anything, but we understood that that's what they learned as
Right.
a
Right.
way to manage all the perils that we were about to get into, and we forgive, right? But there was a bit of judgment on, oh, because their parents didn't do that, they didn't see that, they didn't live that way. So little by little, we started to sort of refine who we were and what we wanted to focus on. And we found a lot of value in that affinity space, right? To
Sure.
be able to relate culturally there, because we had our own set of uh, things to deal with, right?
Yep.
Like mental health is, we as men of color growing up, therapists, psychologists, it's hard as men already, but
Oh,
especially
yeah.
with men of color, Latino men, that's a no-no. You don't even begin that conversation, right? So to be able to address it where nobody felt attacked, where it was like, listen, just the way you're thinking is the way that I'm thinking, but something's got to give. you
Yeah.
know,
hundred
that
percent.
was that was the value of creating that affinity space, and to be able to come in front of this young man, and for them to see that when we're talking about something, or they're talking about what's happening in their block, in their building, their hood, yeah, we all understand that you don't have to explain it. You don't have to,
Right.
try to mask it as X. Just speak bluntly, like, we get it. We're not
Yeah.
judging you.
You know
So
you
that's
are.
the power of it. And that's how we ended up just being an affinity space.
It's
But
incredible.
definitely um, a lot of value that came to me for me in
Yeah.
this space. And more
I
than
bet.
anything, I found that being able to offer value to others, it was fulfilling to me. So it continues to be a selfish journey, to be honest with you. As much as I like to talk about community and about what we're doing for others, everything that I'm talking about is something that fills my cup, right?
Yeah,
So
it feeds your
like,
soul, right? Like
it's for you, but it's also for me.
but I think that's healthy. It feeds your soul too, right? With everything. Hey, this honestly, your journey, what you're doing is so incredible, inspiring, and really full of ideas for our listeners to think about. I want to maybe end on one thought that maybe you could maybe bring home for the audiences. As you think back to some of these people that are attending, right, your younger self in these situations and stuff, what advice would you give to young people who are listening who have an idea like you did with this, or are entrepreneurial spirited, or want to really go after their dreams, but might be feeling like held back or the doors aren't open or whatever. What's your kind of final advice for the listeners around how
Yeah.
to
So,
how to define your own success and how to do that?
you know,
Anything?
oh, a couple of things there. Number one, I don't, I'm not going to offer advice because, our
Perspective,
whole,
perspective.
yeah,
Sorry.
ethos here is to share perspectives.
I love that. Sorry.
Um,
I should have used your words. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, nothing to apologize for. Or just reminding the audience and myself also that, we don't offer advice because many times we don't follow our own. Like it's very idealized, and
Yeah.
we share about our experiences and we leave out many things, and not for the other, like ourselves in the story that we write of success for ourselves. There's a lot of things that come with it that we put in a box. And when we're
Mm,
giving advice and we're telling others what to do, we tend not to share those pieces because we
mm,
forget them, because we only get to keep how we got through the river, right? Not when we were stuck in the mud. um, so that's the first thing, sharing that perspective. And my success does not belong to me.
mm.
uh, my success belongs to the people who love me and care about me, the people who hold me down, or lift me up. My from my significant other to my family to the men in the brotherhood and others outside of that particular community who are also part of my community at large that have had an influence in my journey that still continues, right? It
Right.
hasn't. I have had many mentors. I still
Yep.
have mentors today in this space that I'm living in, that what I'm practicing today. I am a mentor to others, uh, but even in that exchange and relationship, there is an understanding that I'm offering my time and perspective and my experience, um, and that I'm in that exchange, I'm also being mentored, right? I'm also learning from that young person that I'm talking to, that I'm listening to,
Yep.
that I'm having exchange of time and space and time. So I'm always constantly learning. Um, but I am not independently successful by myself. I wouldn't be talking to you right now. We
Hmm.
wouldn't be talking about the film if it wasn't because Andy and Alex, helped put it together. We wouldn't talking about Mastermind Connect or Young Masterminds Initiative if it wasn't because of these men who came together with me to do this, right? So all of it is about community and how you, uh, again, see value and seek value and offer, value. So reciprocity that's happening there. So reciprocity is big. Um, and just don't be afraid. Like
Yeah.
literally, that film. I'm a filmmaker today. I'm a
That's
film
right.
producer. We're working on another like project. I can really discuss, but
Yep. I got it.
that started because through a grant, we were seeking a grant that had nothing to do with making a film. Yeah, a little too late right now for this one, but there's this media grant. Do you think you can use it? For me, I didn't even have a use for it when I said yes. I said yes because there's something that when that person put it on the table,
That's right. Yep.
it's like divine intervention, right? Something is coming to you there.
I
And
believe in
why
that. Yeah.
say no? Like, yes, I can do something with it. And we ended up making an award-winning film that's now leading to other projects. I've also become a speaker. I was shy to do that. I'm not a shy person. Um, but to have to go on stage and speak, I could have a conversation like this, but to
Yep.
just speak about something, TED Talk, that sort of thing, it was not something on my cards, let's say, because it's not something that I wanted to do, not because I felt incapable of doing it, but it's simply something that I didn't see the value in doing at the time. But once we had this film and once we started doing this impactful work and once we went from, the New York City to expand to Colorado and became a national organization, now I become part of a movement, right?
That's
Of,
right.
of social and environmental justice, right? So now we're advocating for even policy change. So my voice now affects the lives of others.
That's right.
So because of that, now I am not only money entrepreneur, the business person, the family man, the
The
what
dad.
do you call it? Father, the dad, the husband,
Yeah.
the founder of a men's collective, the founder of a nonprofit organization works with youth, filmmaker, but also I'm a speaker, right? I'm gonna be speaking at South by Southwest in 2025, right? In
Oh,
March.
wow.
You know
Very
how
good.
hard that is for
Yeah.
people to actually have an hour to have us be on that stage. Tech companies, they pay a lot of money to get there. And here we are, a little nonprofit organization here, very young, and we have a spot at South by Southwest, right? We
Love
have an
that.
hour stage. So I didn't a year ago, I wouldn't think about being on stage at South by
That's
Southwest.
right. That's
But now I'm ready. I have my whole thing. That's in March. I already have my whole kit
right.
ready for that, right? Because of all the
So cool.
other times that I've been speaking at conferences and summits, and started like this, just a virtual call. So just be open. Just be open to the opportunities. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid. Don't be reckless. But life, it's not static, and it's never going to be safe or as safe as you want it to be or you wish it to be. So you need to be bold sometimes and just be daring and put yourself out there.
I love that. I love that. Man, I could talk to you for another couple hours. You're not just a cool dad, you're a cool guy.
No, thank you.
And thank you so much for being part with Coffee with Convery. Really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join me tonight and to be part of this series of inspiration. So thanks again, Manny. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so for our listeners, if you loved what you heard tonight, please like us on Spotify, give us a rating, share this with your friends in your network. We're also on Instagram, Coffee with Convery. You can find all the different episodes there we've had over the last few years. And remember, this is Coffee with Convery. This is the podcast where we show you that success isn't always about climbing the corporate ladder. Sometimes it's about building your own jungle gym. Thank you for joining tonight. Thank you.